evening and welcome to Current Issues. I'm your host, Hesham Tillawi. Something is going on in the world. It has to be. Where's the president? He was in Jordan. Dick Cheney was in Saudi Arabia. Condoleezza Rice, she was in Palestine. The Iraqi president in Iran. The Iraqi Prime Minister was in Jordan to meet with the President. What's going on? Well, ladies and gentlemen, what is going on, as a matter of fact, is an interesting scenario that they lied to us and they're still lying to us. Even though we discovered their game, even though we know how the game is played, they are still lying to us. You know, Iraq is about to split up into 3 different countries. And the president says that we are doing okay in Iraq and everything is going to be okay in Iraq. That we are going to stay the course. I don't know which course he's going to stay, but that's also a lie because he's not going to stay the course. As a matter of fact, the Iraq group that James Baker has headed, basically they're advising that we need to remove our troops from combat areas and put them back in their bases as a support force for the Iraqi army. That's, of course, which means that is the first step to leaving Iraq. Now, when we leave Iraq, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to leave a country that was stable, a country that was okay to live in. It wasn't like after 12 years of embargo and a siege, it wasn't the best country to live in, but it was peaceful. People did not worry about being killed. Not like the way they are now. So what is going on? Dick Cheney was in Saudi Arabia, and what he wants to do, he wants the Arabs to side up with Israel against Iran. These people don't read history. These people don't know anything about the culture there. They think they can go there and ask the Arabs to side up with an enemy who was theirs and still is for 60 years. But in order for them to succeed in that game of getting Israel and the Arabs kind of together against Iran, they have to set up the stage for it. And the stage is Iran has to be a threat to some of these Arab countries, especially the ones in the Gulf, like Saudi Arabia, Abu Dhabi, and the United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, and all these other countries there. And that's basically what the United States wants to get. If they can get Saudi Arabia to go along with that, then they very much have Israel as a superpower there. But before they can do that, though, they had to take care of the Palestinian problem. And that's why you saw Almret going overnight from killing the Palestinians, about 120 of them in 10 days. We have about 6,000 Palestinians died since 2002. Many homes demolished. People are homeless. A wall that surrounds Palestinian cities and choking the life out of Palestinians. Now Almret overnight pulls his troops out of Gaza and says that he's going to give peace to the Palestinians. Overnight? What happened? Does this have anything to do with Dick Cheney going to Saudi Arabia, demanding that they side up with Israel against Iran? But of course the first thing they told him was, we could not do it as long as Israel's killing the Palestinians. So now they want to try to come up with something for the Palestinians. Now, it's not going to be peace. It's not going to be an independent state. They're probably going to do something similar to what happened in 1993. The Palestinians and the Israelis will sign up another agreement to talk about peace. But in the meantime, facts on the ground will look like this. After Israel gives the Palestinians more breathing room, that is, the Arabs will look at it and as the Palestinian issue has been solved. And more Arab countries might sign peace agreements with Israel. But then Israel does not have to give up anything. And facts on the ground will be that Israel picked up something that is very important to it, which is peace with the Arab nations. Now, all Israel has to do to have peace with the other nations, basically, leave the occupied territories, the occupied Palestinian territories, and allow or abide by UN resolutions like 194 and 242. That's what Israel needs to do. But this is what's happening. Now, of course, yesterday, the president was supposed to meet with al-Maliki, that's the Prime Minister of Iraq, and they canceled the meeting at first because they are very upset with the Maliki. As a matter of fact, the whole thing was almost canceled, but it wasn't good for the Maliki if the President of the United States went to Amman and after setting up a meeting with him would cancel it, then that would be a problem. So what happened is, instead of meeting with him yesterday, they met today. And they demanded, you see, I mean, we went there, we broke up this country, and now we expect, by putting a government that we choose, that that government is going to do what we want it to do. It's not. It's not. Tonight, ladies and gentlemen, we will be speaking in the first hour with Kwaitkowski. And Karen is a retired Lieutenant Colonel, United States Air Force. She's an excellent writer, excellent speaker. As a matter of fact, she had her own radio show. Karen had worked at the Pentagon at the start of the war, so she knows a lot about what's going on and what happened and why are we in the mess we are in. And I'm going to talk with her about how does she read what's going on now. What is happening in the Middle East and what is happening? Are we going to see the troops coming home soon? And also I'll talk to her about the elections to see why really the Democrats have won these elections. Was there a reason behind it? Do we have Karen with us? She's with us? Can you hear me? Karen, can you hear me? I can't hear her. I can't hear her.
Okay.
Oh, now I can.
I can hear you now. I didn't hear anything before that, though.
Okay. Well, I didn't hear anything before that either, but I can hear you now.
Okay, good.
Welcome to the show, Karen.
Well, thank you very much. Good to be here.
Good. Karen, the president was in Jordan, in Amman. I don't know if he still is, but I don't know if he left yet. But he was supposed to. I don't know what he's doing there. What is he doing in Amman? Do you know?
You know, I don't know, but I'm not sure what they're doing. But my suspicions are not positive.
Okay.
I wrote an article earlier this week. Antiwar.com carried it. I wrote it originally for Lou Rockwell, and I think whenever this president and his trusted advisors go to our allies in the Middle East, it seems like they are planning for something that's not in our interests.
Right.
But I don't know. I do not know. I do not know.
Well, now, Dick Cheney was in Saudi Arabia a day before, and some of the news that leaked out, I haven't seen anyone talking about this, but some of the intelligence sources have said that Cheney went there demanding that the Arabs, some of the Arab states, like Saudi Arabia, for instance, to join in to make like an Israeli camp against Iran, as if to say that the security concerns of Israel are very much the security concerns of the Arabs, so these two camps have to get together against Iran. Do you know anything about that?
You know, I don't, and I have not seen any information coming from that. But the sad thing is, what you're saying and what these intelligence sources are reporting is very much what I thought it was going to be, even though I didn't have information. I think that we look like we are trying to close ranks, trying to behave extremely aggressively with Iran, and we are strong-arming the same suspects, the usual suspects that we always strong-arm before we go and do our business in the Middle East. And it sounds like that's what Dick Cheney was doing. I'm not sure that it will work. I think the credibility of this administration is really shrinking, and not just among Americans. I think it's not credible to even our old trusted allies or puppets, as you will, the Saudis. I mean, I don't think we have the soft power, the moral power that we had, or that we at least were able to exercise years ago. We don't have that anymore under the Bush administration. So perhaps Cheney is a creature of habit, but it doesn't surprise me that that's what he would be doing. I don't know how successful he will be, though.
Well, it will be as successful as the Iraq campaign.
There you go. Well, I think we have our answer then.
Right, because you know how when you screw up something and you know you screwed up bad, and then you try to come and fix it, like me trying, screwing up my TV and trying to fix it, I end up probably shocking myself a couple of times. And I think that's what's going to happen, because now it was something very interesting that I read in one of your articles. I believe it's the last one you wrote. It says that the neoconservative moment in American politics has not passed. And you go on to say that these people are still really lingering around, even though Paul Wolfowitz is not there, Richard Perle is not there, Douglas Fott is not there. But you're thinking that, you know what, their influence or the idea of these neoconservatives are still there. Tell me about that.
Well, I think that neoconservatism as a philosophy is attractive to a lot of people, not just the big government Republicans, but certainly the big government Democrats. And that's who we got in there. I mean, this idea that we somehow changed our Congress last couple weeks ago, that's nice that we did get rid of some incumbents and we did bring some new Democrats in. But the Democratic Party is in many ways more neoconservative than the whole of the Republican Party. The Republican Party always had a neoconservative wing, and they periodically gained the upper hand, and then sometimes they didn't have it. But in the Democratic Party, they are totally comfortable with a neoconservative foreign policy. And I think clearly, and you've written about this yourself, but Pelosi, the actions and statements that she's taken, she is no enemy of the neoconservative foreign policy that this administration has been pursuing. She's no enemy of it. I think she fully supports it. And I think her sitting with George Bush, we're very friendly, conversing about the few things that her Democratic House will proceed upon, the small investigations here and there. No talk of impeachment, no talk of really bringing our troops home, which is what many of those Democrats were elected to do. The people have spoken, and they want the troops home, but that's not what Pelosi wants. And I think very much the neoconservatives have, and they've known this, that they have a great deal of support, what you would call bipartisan support. So I don't think they're gone at all. I think the foreign policy that they put forth, while it has failed miserably in Iraq, many people, even to this day, in fact, I have to tell you this, I saw something on TV just, I think it was this morning on CNN, and they were interviewing a man on the street. Now, we have been in Iraq for over 4 years, right? 4 years, close to 4 years?
Right.
And we're talking about Iran, and you would think that even if 4 years ago people didn't know what Iraq was, by now they would be able to distinguish between Iran and Iraq, Iraq and Iran, yeah. Well, they can't. The guy they interviewed on CNN, the reporter had to correct him. He started talking about Iraq when he meant Iran and vice versa. We don't know. Americans are so incredibly ignorant, I think, of some of this stuff. And so what the neoconservatives have to sell us ignorant Americans, which is the most of the people, they have this very powerful sounding foreign policy. We're going to go deliver freedom and democracy. We're going to make the world a better place for Christianity. Well, who questions that? A great many people find it easy to say, well, that's a good thing. That's a good thing. So I think neoconservatism has very solid roots. Even though it has failed, it is clearly at the root of our failures of our Middle Eastern policy. It's the cause of how many deaths? 800,000 Iraqi civilian deaths as a result of just what we've done in the last 4 years. It's very much blameworthy, but I think many Americans will not blame it, and so it's a problem. I don't know. I think it's here. I think it's here to stay, and it's going to be a long, long battle, and maybe we're going to have to fail even more publicly and spectacularly than we have failed already.
Now, I mean,
as a nation, in our foreign policy, I think until people really wake up and recognize what the problem is.
Now, how would they wake up and realize what the problem is when, as a matter of fact, on another talk show, I heard the host saying, this is one of the hosts who basically believed the government story, and he was questioning that if these weirdos like us trying to bring the truth out, if our stories are correct, then they will have all the mainstream media reporters going out there and reporting it. So why aren't they reporting the stuff that we are reporting? And coming from someone in the media, it was mind-boggling that this guy thinks that reporters are free to go on the street and come back and report and actually reach the end user, which is the viewer, on what they reported. Tell me why you think the people in the United States don't know what's going on.
Well, part of it is that we are pretty self-centered in this country. We're not bad people. Americans are certainly not bad people at all. But our focus is on the pursuit of happiness, I think, in many ways. And we have this idea that government business can be left unwatched and untended. And that's what they're doing, and we'll trust them. We'll trust them. Without a great deal of blood on our own shores. I mean, look, 9/11 woke people up in America. Americans woke up when 9/11 happened. But 800, 650, 700, 800,000 dead Iraqis in the last 4 years, that doesn't wake Americans up. What we've done to Afghanistan in the last 4 years, that doesn't wake Americans up. We just don't pay attention globally. For any number of reasons. And so because we don't pay attention, the government and people who have influence over our government, because certainly we have very few elected neoconservatives, very few I can think of. I mean, Lieberman certainly is one, but there's not many people that actually run on a neoconservative ticket and get elected in this country. So it's not so much the people we send to Washington, but those who bear an influence, those who help design our foreign policy. They can do pretty much what they want because most Americans aren't paying attention unless there's blood and gore and it's their own sons and daughters. We haven't had that. The way we've prosecuted this war in Iraq, this occupation, is to keep our, well, certainly we block images of the dead, still block images of the caskets coming back. We control very much the media flow out of Iraq. We are careful not to expose our soldiers to a great deal of harm before domestic events like elections. I think our troops historically, since they've been there 4 years, will avoid confrontation with the Iraqi insurgents and nationalists if the timing is not good to take casualties in the American media. So this is very much a managed thing. It's managed to keep Americans asleep, and I think it's worked pretty well. Now, I think one of the reasons that Charles Rangel, and I do disagree with the draft, but Charles Rangel is proposing that, well, we should have a draft. And I think his heart may be in the right place. He thinks he will wake up Americans if there's a draft. And I certainly oppose it because this government, I don't care if Democrats or Republicans run it, I think this government is so corrupt that I cannot abide mandatory service, but he wants to wake Americans up. It's very difficult. We're not awake.
Okay. Karen, now when you were at the Pentagon, Douglas Feith was there at the same time, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he was our Undersecretary for Policy. Yeah.
Right. And then he became, I think, the chairman for the planning special Office of Special Plans or something.
Well, he was over that because that was formed out of policy. That was subordinate office to him. Yeah.
Okay. Now, I know the last time you were on the show, I asked you the same question. I'm going to ask you the same question now. How was the mood within the Pentagon before we went to go to war? I mean, were the generals or the junior officers and officers, were they really believing that we need to go to war, or were they questioning what was going on?
I can tell you a lot of folks I think there's maybe three groups. And the smallest group would be those who actually questioned it. And that would be those who actually saw the intelligence, those who had experience in enforcement of the no-fly zones. They knew how weak, how deprived the country of Iraq was, at least militarily, certainly economically. They understood how weak the country was. And I think those who either saw the intelligence or had seen Iraq during the years of sanctions understood that this made very little sense from a national security perspective.
And that Iraq could not be a threat to anyone.
Oh, sure. Yeah, absolutely. And certainly that, it's funny, we pick on some of the American Enterprise Institute people because they had talked about the word, they'd used the word cakewalk. But in fact, I think for a lot of military people, they looked at Iraq as such a dilapidated place that it posed no threat, and that it would indeed be a military cakewalk. And so there's a small number, I think, of people, and military people, who questioned it. I think another large number of them felt it was a political war, which of course it was from the very beginning and is today. And so, but as subordinate to the politicians' wishes, subordinate to the executive's wishes, they did not question it. And so it's not our job to question. Our job is to do what we're told. Yeah, that doesn't make a lot of sense, but we certainly won't question. And then there is a group, not insignificant group of the military, who very much looked upon this, much I think as George Bush did in part, as an opportunity to finish a job that was somehow started under George Herbert Walker Bush, to somehow go in there and have that sense of release, that sense of climax almost. And I hate to use those terms, but I do feel that that's what it is, this sense that we're finished now. We completed this thing. What this thing was that we completed is not clear. But there was, I think, a good number of military people felt, well, we didn't get a chance to really get that guy.
Now, Karen, you're raising an excellent point here. I mean, I'm surprised to see, you experienced that, so I'm sure it happened. You think the President of the United States had that in mind when he went to Iraq?
I think, in part...
That is scary.
I think very much... No, well, it is scary, but George Bush is not a complex man, okay? He is not a complex man. If it was Henry Kissinger, I would not say this. I think Henry Kissinger, for all of his faults, is someone who thinks things through. I think he's very much a chess player, very much a strategizer. And I totally disagree with him, but I think he thinks things through. George Bush doesn't. He is known historically, his reputation, proven by facts about his life. He's a person that, maybe he will tell you this himself, George Bush boasts that he makes his decisions from the gut, okay? And
maybe he was, Karen, maybe he was put in that position at that time so this can happen.
Well, yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's certainly a strange
because a president with an ounce of common sense would know what happens if I go to Iraq, that I'm going to get stuck there and I'm going to own the country and I'm not going to be able to leave. Because now these voices that are saying, oh, you know what, let's just leave the Iraqis to take care of the problem by themselves. Like that, that's like going to someone's house, burning it, and then saying, oh, you know what, I'm sorry, I'll just leave and you go ahead and clean up. Isn't this what we actually would be doing if we bring the troops back?
I don't think so, actually.
Okay.
I have.
Tell me what happens if we leave Iraq. Tell me what happens.
Well, first off, the enemy that unifies a lot of folks and makes them extremely angry and wastes their energy. I mean, this country is a country that needs energy to rebuild it. The target of that good energy is us. We are the target of that energy because we are the ones at fault. We are the ones who have done wrong. We are the corrupt ones. Okay, I'm sorry, we are. I mean, we've stolen things. We've broken things. We're not in there for any of the right reasons, and I think that's very clear to almost every Iraqi, and certainly to the world. So when we leave, that target of righteous anger and righteous energy will be gone. And I think Iraqis are quite capable of picking up the pieces. And yes, the pieces are there. There are pieces. It's not whole.
But Iraqis are not capable of picking up the pieces. We know that because we are there and they're having a civil war. When we leave, it's going to even be worse for Iraqis than what it is now.
Well,
so what kind of
I think for a short period of time. I think for a short period of time it will be. But our presence there, certainly without any type of strategy, and certainly we have no respect. This country, I don't think there's any doubt that this country, at least the administration, has no respect at all for any Iraqi leaders. None of them. The ones against us, the ones that are supporting us, our puppets, we respect none of them. And so we are not going to be, as criminal as it is, we are not going to be part of this solution. So I'm advocating, I have advocated, and I feel that it would be the best thing for our troops to come home now, American troops to come home now.
And just leave these people, to take care of their problem?
I think in many ways, many parts of Iraq, the Iraqis are already taking care of their problems. And I got an email from a guy, and he was in Iraq, and I think it was a Polish guy, and he had a chance to go back after he vacated. He had turned some stuff over in a part of the country that's not a big problem. I think it was in the south central part. Not a big problem. We turned the Polish occupiers helping us, turned it back to the Iraqis. About a year or two later, he went back, and he expected to see lots of problems, but in fact, he did not see problems. What he saw was a very competent economy. People were living securely. Certainly the Iraqis can do it. And quite frankly, if we suggest that, we have to stay and hold their hand, flip it the other way. If the Canadians invaded this country, or the Venezuelan army came and invaded America and occupied us for a time, and we had unified or maybe even not unified, but we were fighting them in various ways, and we were focusing our rage against them. If they left, or if they were thinking about leaving, and they said to us, well, you Americans can't rebuild your country, we'll have to help you. I think we would resent that, and we certainly wouldn't believe it. So, who are we to say that the Iraqis can't? And I think, now, I'm not saying we don't owe the Iraqis a great deal. We owe them a debt we will not be able to repay, and I don't think Americans will ever
do we even have enough money to pay them?
No, we don't have enough money. We are a debtor nation, for God's sake. This country certainly couldn't do that.
Karen, the Boston Globe had reported, this is not new news, but for someone like the Boston Globe to report it, to me it's always news, when they're saying that the FBI counterterrorism unit is doing an investigation on car theft ring, where a lot of these stolen cars end up in Iraq, a lot of these car bombings and stuff. And actually they're saying that they're opening up the investigation to stop this from helping terrorism, as to say that the so-called terrorists in Iraq are stealing American cars to use them in car bombings. I mean, this is silly, doesn't it?
It sounds, yes. Well,
I believe the car ring, and I believe the cars being exploded in Iraq might be some of these stolen American cars, but I don't think it's the people over there that are stealing it.
No. Well, war is business, isn't it? And it's certainly a business that this country this is one of the problems, our economy during the Cold War and even after the Cold War, we've very much shifted.
Could this be a CIA operation going on?
Economy. What's that? I'm sorry?
Could this be a CIA operation going on, stealing cars, going there and bombing them and blaming it on the Shiites and sometimes blaming it on the Sunnis?
You know what? There's a lot of people working for the CIA. That is one organization that has expanded. They are reaching out and recruiting in every college across this country very actively. They are even advertising to people in high school. It would not surprise me one bit. Now, I certainly have no evidence of that. But government, I'm a libertarian. I don't trust government. And the bigger it gets, the worse it is. And the CIA is, as an arm of government, an arm of the executive. It's very large. It's growing. It has a huge budget, most of which we have no idea what they're doing with it. Sure. Yeah, I don't know. And look at Negroponte, for God's sake.
Right.
His history does not bode well for me to argue that the CIA is not behind this. Because
of course.
Knowing that Negroponte is in the level that he's at and the kinds of things he was certainly involved in. And
in South America.
And felt was okay. My goodness.
Right. Now, Karen, this is something I always said on this program for the last 4 years, that we went there, destroyed a country that was actually in our best and vital interest to keep it there, which is Saddam Hussein regime and Iraq, to basically be a first line of defense against Iran. And I always said that what we have done actually is done the Iranians a favor by destroying one of their enemies, and actually their number one enemy. And last week, one of the mullahs there in Iraq, he made a statement that very much echoes what I've been saying for the last 4 years. He said that the United States exit, that Iran will assess the United States exit that would enhance Iran's regional power. The argument put forward by Mohsen Rezai, Secretary of the Government's Expediency Council, states that America's arrival in the region presented Iran with a historic opportunity. The kind of service that the Americans, with all their hatred, have done us, said Rezai. No superpower has ever done anything similar. America destroyed all our enemies in the region. It destroyed the Taliban. It destroyed Saddam Hussein. The American teeth got so stuck in the soul of Iraq and Afghanistan that if they managed to drag themselves back to Washington in one piece, they would thank God. That's very much what we've been saying for the last 4 years. The Iranians saying, thank you, America, you destroyed our enemy, and now get out of here.
Yeah, that's true, and it's checkmate, because we have no choice but to get out of there.
Exactly. It is, now, I agree with you on that one. It is checkmate. We have no reason but to get out of there, and if we get out of there, I mean, we can't stay there, but yet we can't leave. So that's the position that we are in, but definitely we cannot stay there. I mean, this is mind-boggling. Now, the question is, it wasn't oil. It wasn't that Saddam killed his people. We killed a lot more than Saddam did. It was not because he had links with bin Laden. It was not because he had weapons of mass destruction, because now our government is saying, you know what, he did not. So the question remains, why did we go there? I don't think our government is that stupid to go there. How much does Israel have to do with this?
Well, it has to. I don't know if Israel, as the actual prime ministers at the time, but certainly those people in American policy circles, okay, the Richard Pearls, the Paul Wolfowitzes, the Doug Fifes, the American Enterprise Institute thinkers, a number of these, GINSA, a number of these organizations which claim to advocate for Israel on behalf of Israel. And they do. I mean, they absolutely do. They say that there is, one ally in the Middle East for America, and that's Israel. And, they build up the position, and they believe, I think, that they're supporting and advocating for Israel. And these are the people that designed this approach to, as you say, a pre-designed plan to destroy the unified state of Iraq, which, in fact, we had helped set up because it served our interests, our real American interests, I think. At one time during the Cold War, that certainly served our interests. That was consistent with American national security aims during the Cold War. Israel's aims are very different, of course, and a strong Iraq was not seen as a good thing. But I don't know if it's so much Israel's government or I really think it's more people who fancy that they are somehow helping Israel. And I really think it's a bad thing if they believe that, because I don't think anything that we have done in accordance with the neoconservative planning, which has been very poor, but it has succeeded, and as you say, tearing that country up and totally weakening it, putting it in chaos. This might have been an Israeli objective, but it was advocated for by Americans. Okay, Americans who feel that Israel is very important.
Who you calling Americans?
What's that?
Who are you calling Americans?
Well, I'm
Douglas Feith,
these guys, and also the Christian right. Very much the neoconservative Christian right is very much an advocate for Israel too. They fancy that they are. I don't believe that what they call for is in any way good for Israel as a member of the community of nations. Not at all. But I think they think it is. And they certainly have the ear of this administration. Both, they have the right ear and the left ear. They have the neoconservatives have the security ear, and the Christian right has the so-called, the left behind, Armageddon ear. And George Bush hears out of both of those ears, and he listens to these. And both of these groups, both the Christian, the Christian right, who believe Israel is, I think, in many ways more important in this country, and the neoconservatives who I think believe that they are doing something good for Israel's own security. I think they're wrong in this, but they believe it. These folks have together produced both, by electing George Bush and by guiding his policies and shaping his decisions, they've produced this situation. I don't believe it's good for Israel. I think it's very dangerous for Israel. I don't think it's good for Israel's economy. I don't think it's good for Israel's, emotional health, security. I don't think it's good for Israel at all, but I think they believe that it is. So that's not quite the same thing as saying that we're doing it for Israel. I think there are people that think they're doing it for Israel, and they're certainly swaying American policy in accordance with a certain design.
All right.
But I don't think it's good for Israel or for America, or it's certainly not good for the Middle East.
Okay, let's stay on that one. If you're saying it's not good for Israel, then who is it good for? Listen, I mean, the United States government, with all its resources, it could not be that stupid just to go and destroy a country for nothing.
Yes, it could be. It could be stupid, and also there is blind belief. When you talk about Israel, it is not talking. You can't talk about Norway. You can't talk about England. You can't talk about Japan. There's no country that, when you speak of it, somehow it becomes holy. And when the neoconservatives and the Christians, when the neoconservatives who believe that Israel is the linchpin of American security in the Middle East, and that would be the Richard Pearls and the Wolfowitzes and these guys, the Newt Gingriches. And then when you add that to the Christian right, who sees Israel as some sort of, I shouldn't say mythological, but certainly there is some, unearthly power that Israel has, some religious thing. When you add these things together, it is easy to see how George Bush would make these decisions. Certainly they're not good for America, but George Bush, as he has said several times before, he reports to a higher father. That's what George Bush says. So this is not going to be a rational foreign policy. It's not a rational foreign policy. It's not good for this country. It's not good for Israel. It's not good for the Middle East. It's not good for oil prices. It's not good for anything. But it is not. But that would be if we demanded rationality. We're not going to get rationality. We do not get rationality from people who are not rational. And quite frankly, I did want to, I'm glad you asked me this, because I have a concern that increasingly George Bush himself is not seen as rational. The current information about how he's rejecting the Baker advocacy, that we really have to bring our troops home. I mean, that's pretty much everyone here is under this, we believe we need to bring those troops home. George Bush says, no, we don't. He's really off his rocker.
Karen, do you know if they recovered the body, or has the pilot that went down a couple of days ago, that F-16 pilot, have they recovered his body?
I have not heard. I had the impression that his body was grabbed up by Iraqi nationalists, and I don't know, but I have not heard anything about that. Have you?
No, but the strangest thing is, to me, I mean, I don't know, some weird thoughts that maybe we're not going to know much about the pilot because maybe he was not an American?
Well, let me tell you, if he was not an American, we are never going to know anything about it.
Okay.
Yeah, right. That's an interesting thought. I had not thought of it. You know, when I heard that it went down and I saw some articles about it, and they said it wasn't shot down, although it was doing close air support, so it probably it could have been shot down. But they said it wasn't shot down, and they didn't say it was an accident, but it hadn't been shot down.
Okay.
This was already, to me, a denial of something.
Right.
And I did not assume. I assumed immediately that it was an American pilot.
Okay.
But I felt that they were not being honest about it, so it wouldn't surprise me. Yeah.
All right. I'll tell you what. We're going to go to the phones. We have people waiting to speak with you.
Okay.
Let's go to Bernard. Go, Bernard. Freedom. Go ahead.
Oh yes. Hello, Karen and Dr. Tillawi. So nice y'all back on the air again.
Thanks.
Hey, all right. Karen,
Yes.
can you hear me?
Yes, she can.
Yes, I can.
Okay, look, I'm trying to connect the dots here. That's what I do with Dr. Tillawi almost every week. First we had the poisoning of Yasser Arafat. Then we have Ariel Sharon, who's apparently still in a coma. Then we had Hariri to be killed in Syria. And now we have the assassination of Gemayel. Let me ask you a question. Who in the world is doing all this stuff? I mean, who does it benefit? It doesn't benefit the Syrians. So who in the world is doing all this stuff, Karen? Do you have any insight as to what's happening? And by the way, we've heard on several websites that was an Israeli pilot that was shot down in Iraq. So thank you very much.
Okay, that wouldn't. I have not heard that, but it sounds very interesting. As far as these assassinations, I guess you would almost have to add to that the assassination of the Russian, the ex-KGB guy with his nuclear poisoning, the uranium, I don't know what it was, polonium, I guess it was, that he was poisoned with. You know, the guy that died up in England?
Right.
You know who I'm talking about? I can't remember the guy's name. A Russian.
Right.
He also died.
Yeah, I can't think of his name either, yes.
Yeah, another assassination. I think there's talk that who would benefit there, not the Russians. This guy was a kind of a whack-ball, apparently, to the Russians. Not somebody that they would, if they did want to kill him. This is at least what Justin Raimondo, his interpretation is that, and he doesn't say who did it, he certainly doesn't know, but certainly it seems as if a whole bunch of people that we think are doing it, this is not in their interest.
Right.
The capabilities to conduct these kinds of things are pretty highly developed, and so we have to look at places where you would have that type of a capability. Certainly, at some point in our past, the CIA was good at this kind of thing. I don't believe they're that good at it now. But yeah, I don't know. What are you going to do? I don't have insight into it. I certainly have. I certainly know where you're coming from. It makes sense to me. I'd like to see more facts come out.
Right. Well, actually, that guy, the spy, you know, he wrote a letter accusing Putin, President Putin, of doing it. But I think that letter was written too well to be written by someone on his deathbed.
Well, there's a whole bunch of weird things with that, and we have to look at who benefits. Who are the enemies of? At least, the Likud side of Israel, and also the enemies of Washington, because there is no doubt, elections in November or not, that we are still, as George Bush will say many times, we are the number one backer, the number one moral supporter of Israel. Nothing has changed with that. We've been that for decades, and we are still that today.
Okay, I tell you what,
so,
we're going to go back to the phones with Chris. Go ahead, Chris. Chris, you're on. Chris? No more Chris. All right, call us back, Chris. We lost you. So I guess how long is it going to be now? They're talking about a year before we really have something substantial, and then with the Iraq Study Group, with James Baker, they're saying pull the troops out into military bases. and don't have them in combat situations, and just have them as support for the Iraqi police. How long is that, you think, that's going to last?
Actually, first off, I think we've already done that. I think that the whole reason, one of the big reasons we went to Iraq was to build those massive mega bases, which we have completed now. And I don't know if you ever shop at Lowe's or Home Depot or any place like that.
Always.
But the price of concrete and steel has dropped. And the reason it's dropped, and lumber too, is because of demand has dropped. And the demand has dropped in part, not just due to the American housing slump, but in part due to the fact that we're not sending that stuff over there. You know, we weren't using locally manufactured concrete or anything like that. All this stuff is a big American, what do you call it, the tax-funded subsidy for this stuff. And we built these bases, and those bases are now complete, okay? That's one of the big reasons we went there, to reposition our military footprint, to use some of that free territory. I guess that's how George Bush must look at it, because, you know, it wasn't his kid that died. Free territory to build these bases. We didn't need a host nation agreement because we were the host nation, because we were occupied.
Right.
So we've built these bases, and the vast majority of our military forces in Iraq are in these bases, and the more that they're sending over are going to be in these bases. If they leave those bases, they're subject to being killed by Iraqis, and we don't want that. So I already think it's happening. If James Baker thinks he is, and his group is coming forth with some grand idea, it's really an illusion, because this has always been the plan, is to occupy, or to keep our troops on these bases that we built and have that as American territory, just like that massive embassy we're building. This will be a little American island, a little American Guantanamo, in the midst of a Middle Eastern Somalia, in the midst of impoverished Cuba, but it'll be 3 parts of Iraq. It'll be, you know, whatever's left. And we'll do what we please, because those governing bodies in Iraq will not have power relative to our power, and that was the plan. That was the plan. We're doing everything according to plan. So I don't really see, if that's all Baker has to say, is that our guys should go to our bases. I mean, that was what we were doing anyway. Now, if he's advocating bringing them home, I'm all for that. I would like all of them home.
Now, we could have...
But this is kind of a game. This is kind of a political game to try to...
Yeah.
I don't buy into it, really.
So how do you see the long term, or when I say long term, let's say 10 years, do you see, like, the Middle East split between pro-Iranians and pro-Israel countries?
Well, not too many pro-Israel ones.
Well, if the United States gets its way...
I think you're going to see more... I think you're going to see more Sunni and Shia type issues.
But they are trying... Well, you see, the only way you're going to have a pro-Israel countries there is if you intensify the fight between the Sunnis and the Shiites, and that way the Sunni government, the pro-Western Sunni government, will see Iran as danger, and if Israel is willing to protect that whole area, then their only option would be is to side up with Israel.
Well, that's true, and I think there's a whole lot that we should be learning and we should be paying very close attention to the very long-term relationship between the Kurds and Israel.
Right.
There's a huge things going on there, and we don't watch it, and we don't monitor it. I mean, some people do, but we don't really see that. We don't see that as a lesson. Turkey's alliance, in many economic ways and some military ways, with Israel. That could be the long-term direction, that certain weaker states will see a benefit. And
you think?
You know, I tell you what, if it brings peace, I'm cool with it. But I think of it as kind of artificial. I think. Well,
do you think that explains why Olmert offered the Palestinians? Because Dick Cheney went to Saudi Arabia, and the president the day after is in Jordan, and then all of a sudden Israel saying, "Hey, we're going to give the Palestinians an independent state, and we're going to move some of our settlements out." I mean, they're just killing them in Gaza all along, and overnight he's offering peace. Do you think this has anything to do with it?
I think all this stuff is related, and I think, much as it appears to people outside of the United States, that there does seem to be a huge amount of coordination between American and Israeli foreign policy.
Because I mean, in order for you to succeed in this, as the United States and Israel, by getting some of these Arabs on your side, is to basically solve the Palestinian problem. Then you are. I really think this is a golden opportunity for the Palestinians, because now they are sort of the wild card that they should demand their full rights. With all the UN resolutions that are out there on their behalf, I think now they stand to be the link between what the United States is trying to do in the Middle East by getting these Arab countries to side up with Israel. But first they have to solve the Palestinian problem. So I think the Palestinians have a golden opportunity now to actually ask for a lot, because now, hey, if you solve their problem, then America is okay.
That's true, and I hope that they're looking at it as an opportunity. I have to say, I am, I'm not Palestinian, and I haven't lived there, but I feel bad for them. They have all, like you said, all of these UN resolutions on their behalf, in most cases, advocating for their point of view, because the world has agreed that their point of view is just, and yet none enforced. And so I am just kind of cynical in that I think that we're going to see any of those. If that was what we had on the plate, let's enforce some of these UN resolutions, that would be wonderful. I don't see that on the plate. I mean, we still have John Bolton at the UN, and I just don't see that on the plate. I have to say I'm kind of distrustful of it. It could be a golden opportunity for the Palestinians, and I hope it's that way. And if they can seize that and have success with it, great. But I'm kind of cynical. Most of this stuff looks very superficial to me. In fact, I'm concerned that George Bush is off his rocker, and that he's willing to engage in more death and destruction before he's done. And I don't see how that benefits the Palestinians in any way. But I hope I'm wrong.
I don't see them solving the Palestinian problem, but I'm seeing them playing another game like the Oslo Agreement back in 1993 of getting or acting as if they're giving the Palestinians something. In return, some of these Arab countries would change their position about Israel a little bit at a time. And I think eventually Israel will get what it wants, but they don't have to give anything to the Palestinians, and it's going to be facts on the ground, and it's too late to do anything about it.
Yeah. Well, that's the way I see it too. Now, I'm no expert on this, and I would like to be hopeful that there was some sincerity in some of the things, but quite frankly, when Dick Cheney goes somewhere, I rule out any sincerity.
Okay, I'll tell you what, Karen, we have like a couple of minutes left, but I'm going to put a caller on. Go ahead, Chris. Chris, go ahead.
Yes, I'm sorry, we got cut off.
It's okay.
What do you think about Jimmy Carter's new book about Palestine?
Peace or apartheid?
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
I haven't read it myself.
You haven't read it? Okay.
No, I haven't. Sorry.
Okay. Okay, very good. Karen, we only have time to say thank you for coming on the program. It has been a pleasure having you here.
Okay, well, it's wonderful to talk to you. I always enjoy it, and
thank you.
Let's hope for the best.
Thanks. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, in the second hour, we are going to tackle the Palestinian question or the Palestinian problem. Actually, we are going to be speaking with a 15-year-old Stefania Glenn, who wrote a couple of articles about the Palestinian children. We will be speaking with her about her latest. She's 15, but she's writing, and she knows about what's going on the other side of the ocean, which is not too many 15-year-olds even know where Palestine is. This American Christian of 15 years old, and she is doing wonderful writing about the Palestinians and their issue. And so when we come back, we will be gone for 5 minutes, and when we come back, we will be joined with Stefania Glenn, and we will talk to her about what she thinks needs to be done over there, and how she feels about being an American teenager watching Palestinians going through that. So don't go too far. We will be back in 5 minutes. See you then.